Among the myriad of possibilities to earn money on the Sea of Thieves, there's one that many universally agree is absolutely not worth your time: the quest board. The idea of digging up treasure hidden by fellow pirates seems very enticing at first, but chances are that what has been left behind is not as valuable as you might have hoped for. Or at least that's the expectation. Recently, I've been spending a lot of time digging up treasure in that way, and I've actually come across some pretty decent loot, as well as some items that clearly have been left behind as some kind of prank. To explosive effect, I have to admit. So that begs the question, how much money can you make from a full day of treasure hunting? And do people ever leave something behind that is truly valuable? To answer those questions, I needed a crew. Alex and Brandon were going to join me for this quest, but I've had some time to kill before they wake up, so I figured I might as well go and practice my treasure hunting. You see, I'm not very good at reading treasure maps because, well, I can't read. I invited Alex because I knew that was his specialty, but I also didn't want him to have to do all the digging alone. I traveled to Sea Dog's Rest, where I defeated an angry skeleton and then tried to find the treasure they had hidden on that island. Brandon joined me by the time I arrived, and together we found some surprisingly good loot, not all of which I had any intention to carry. We went to the neighboring fortress to collect some supplies for the day, at which point Alex had arrived as well. But because we didn't want to carry any loot that wasn't coming from the quest board, we decided to stuff all of it into the ground back at Sea Dog's Rest. This is where the real treasure hunting began. We grabbed every treasure map corresponding to the neighboring islands of the sea post we picked them up from, and were immediately surprised by just how many other ships were in the area. But not to be discouraged, we headed for Wanderer's Refuge to begin our journey. And let's just say that we weren't off to a great start. The two items hidden away included a castaway chest as well as an ammo crate, so not a great haul to start off the day. Neither was us having to fight some gold hoarders at Mermaid's Hideaway. I may have sword hopped into a blundy shot like an idiot, but Brandon was there to clean up my mess so that we could go treasure hunting in peace as soon as we collected their loot. Though before we knew it, the next challenger was already approaching. Now I'm not gonna bore you with every squabble we had, just know that we made sure to separate the loot on our ship to guarantee we only count the items we collected through the quest board. But there is a little trick I learned while doing this, and it's actually quite obvious. There are two different types of treasure maps you can find: stashes and hoards. You're gonna want to make sure you choose the hoards as much as possible because they always hold more items than the stashes. Unfortunately for us, no such maps were available on the day of our voyage. Plan B was to head over to the Devil's Roar because in my mind, if people bury the treasure that they don't feel like selling, that location will be our best bet since these items are naturally more valuable than in other parts of the sea. Though let me tell you, doing right about anything in this area is incredibly obnoxious because of all the environmental hazards. And when all you find is another castaway chest, the mood begins to take a hit. At that point, we were a couple hours into our voyage and we yet to find anything of value. And with every new bounty skull I collected, I began resenting the quest board. All of these treasure maps have been massive disappointments, and if we don't find something valuable soon, I might have a mutiny on my hands. The good thing is that I got better at finding the treasure. The spot where it's hidden usually looks a little different from the surrounding area, allowing me to pick up a pattern. Which doesn't mean that our treasure hunting went smoothly from there on out. One of these things was taking the piss, being hidden away underwater where I couldn't even attempt to dig it up. Also, Brandon got stuck in a tree and I had to blunderbomb him out of there, but that's besides the point. The point is that all these maps suck, like big time. It was at that moment that I had decided to break the cycle. I was going to create the ultimate treasure map so that whoever finds it would not feel the same disappointment that I was going through. I was going to hide an Athena chest. Now, since there were no active forts at the time yet, the only way for us to get an Athena chest was by doing an Athena Voyage. If you don't know how these work, don't worry, I'm gonna explain it. Once you've ascended to Pirate Legend and are allowed to enter the Legend hideout, you can purchase an Athena Voyage from the Pirate Lord. And no, we're not doing a Thieves Haven run. When you plop down that quest, you immediately want to check your quest radial to see what the Pirate Lord wants you to do. You'll have to complete 2 voyages corresponding to every major trading company, and at the end, you will be rewarded with a treasure map that allows you to dig up an Athena chest. In our case, we didn't even need to restart the quest because the very first one had multiple objectives on each of the islands. Now, as you can imagine, doing 8 quests that require a bunch of sailing takes a long time, and it is because of that tedium that nobody really wants to do them. For many PvPers, managing to steal an Athena chest is the big win condition, even if they lose everything else in the process. That's how coveted that item is. The idea of using it for a treasure map to give to somebody else rather than selling it is downright preposterous, and that's why I wanted to do it. And that's why Rare definitely wanted to stop me. You see, we have been able to collect all this garbage at the top of our ship with very little retaliation, but as soon as we decided to do an Athena Voyage, every enemy type on the sea began coming at us. And of course, as soon as we found something valuable, Rare immediately made it their job to ruin it for us. But it didn't matter how many enemies they sent after my crew, we would not falter. We continued on our voyage with a steel determination in our hearts that could only be born from a deep frustration. No matter how many foul bounty skulls we were given, no matter how many skelly ships we had to fight, and no matter how many megalodons we had to vanquish, this treasure map would be created. Though I can't help but feel like my own crewmates blunderbombing me while I was on a skelly ship was part of that aforementioned mutiny that I had already seen coming. You're blunderbombing me! Stop it! Yeah, there's no way they legitimately thought using a grog ball on a skelly ship made sense. They must have really been fed up with me as their captain. As much as Athena Voyages come with a painful amount of PvE challenges to complete, the one thing that Devil's Roar is useful for is PvEing itself into submission, sometimes making things a bit easier for you just to inconvenience your travels at a later time. Did I mention yet that an Athena Voyage takes a couple hours to complete? Because Alex actually had to leave just shy of the final dig, leaving Brandon and me to complete it on our own. Listen, I could fill another 10 minutes of this episode with all the random PvE nonsense we had to handle on our way to grabbing the Athena, but I think any of you who have set foot on the Devil's Roar know exactly how painful it was to get this job done. Just know that after hours of grinding these things out, we finally got the Athena. Finally. This is what all this led up to. Let's bury it. Now, this may seem a bit excessive to you guys, but in my mind, it made a lot of sense to bury all the valuable loot we found where this whole thing started, on Sea Dog's Rest. Though as we made our way out of the Devil's Roar, we spotted an active Fort of the Damned. Remember, unlike the Fort of Fortune, an FOTD had to be activated manually, meaning this was either PvP bait or somebody was actually trying to complete it. Brandon and I had a long way to go in order to arrive at our destination, and the FOTD was very conveniently on the way. And how much more amazing would our treasure map be if in addition to our Ashen Athena, we also got a regular one from the fort. The temptation was big, but first we decided to make a stop at Reaper's hideout in order to sell all the items we found off of the quest board, since that is why we originally set sail in the first place. The quest board treasure maps had granted us a total of 20,566 gold pieces, plus 2 castaway chests that I accidentally dropped off the ship. Meanwhile, all the random items we found along the way made us another 32,887 gold, solidly putting island hopping above the quest board in terms of profitability. But while we were selling all these items, we noticed something odd. The Fort of the Damned had disappeared and then reappeared again later, which could only mean one thing: somebody was in the process of stacking FOTD. There is no way we could resist now. If these guys are PvE Andes, then chances are we could defeat them even while two-manning a brig. And piercing through the fog, I spotted a lonely sloop with their lights turned on. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After having spent hours getting PvE'd out of our minds, we could not pass up the opportunity to sink an FOTD stacking sloop. But it wasn't until we got closer that we noticed we had been baited. The sloop I had seen moved away from the fort, and in its stead was a brigantine ready to fight us. But I was hopeful. The boarder they sent literally stood still while aiming down the sights, which made me believe they weren't very competent. I swooped on over to the island just to make sure there weren't any dig spots where they were hiding the Athena chests. But when their ship went for a tight turn, I had to seize the opportunity for a board, which was foiled thanks to a double blunderbuss ladder guard. And this is where things went south in a hurry. The first guy might have not been very competent, but the second one double gunned me into oblivion as I made a desperate attempt to defend our Ashen Athena. They had full control of our vessel, and with only Brandon and I trying to reclaim it, things were only gonna go one way. We lost the fight, and they had conquered our loot. Psych? You didn't actually think I was dumb enough to run into a PvP encounter with an Ashen Athena on my ship, did you? We had long since hidden the darn thing away together with all of our valuable loot. The treasure map we lost? Yeah, that was just me getting rid of some garbage. The map was safely stashed away at the quest board, and even when I checked later that night, nobody had dug it up yet. My wealth and treasures? If you want it, you can have it. Search for it, and make sure to tag me on Twitter with a screenshot if you manage to get your hands on that one. If you need some more entertainment for that voyage ahead, what about you check out my last episode in which Birdie and I target the hardest grind in the game. The Hunter's Call is no joke, and you can find the card on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you want to see more, and definitely ring that bell icon to not miss out on my next upload. I hope you guys have a day filled with riches on the sea, and until next time, peace!